Hello and welcome to the Savera. This is Dinkle before you with an explainer on Katchatheevu Islands, which have always been a matter of concern in the southern states of India but never across the nation. But in one past week, it has managed to hit the national headlines, especially after Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke about it to attack its opposition Congress right ahead of the Lok Sabha elections. But before we discuss more about its present debates and scenario, let us understand how Katchatheevu Islands are very important to India. Now, these islands are located between India's Tamil Nadu and northern Sri Lanka in middle of the sea. This barren land, piece of land was result of volcanic eruption that happened back in 14th century. Ever since then, it was barren land of peace. There are no human settlements so far, and because it is void of fresh drinking water, nothing can grow there and no human life can thrive there. All it has to offer is one Christian shrine that is called Saint Anthony's Church, which is visited by Christian community members from India's Tamil Nadu and Sri Lanka once in a year to celebrate annual rituals that happen in St. Anthony's Church. But besides this religious significance, it has another one major economical prominence to both the countries, that is of Sri Lanka and India, which is none other than fishing. Right after the accessibility of these islands went to Sri Lanka, fishing there became prohibited for Indian fishermen. In 1974, when India was governed by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, a treaty was signed between India and Sri Lanka that these islands will now fall within the jurisdiction of Sri Lanka. However, Indian fishermen will be allowed to visit it, will be allowed to dry their nets, will be allowed to sit there, but it was not clear whether or not they will be allowed to fish there. But cut to Treaty of 1976, it became clear and all the fishing activities that were carried out by Indian fishermen of Tamil Nadu were halted. Ever since then, no Indian fishermen could go there to earn their livelihood by fishing or doing any other activities. And also, beginning from 2019, at least thousands of fishermen have been captivated by the Sri Lankan Navy and at least 6 have been killed in their custody. Katchatheevu Island, a piece of barren land spanning across 285 acres in the middle of sea, is a lonely, deserted island, mainly uninhabited due to its lack of drinking water. Consequently, it has nothing much to offer besides a Christian shrine called Saint Anthony's Church, which witnesses annual celebrations attended by thousands of Christians from Tamil Nadu and northern Sri Lanka. This island, which came into existence with a volcanic eruption back in 14th century, was initially taken over by Ramanand Kingdom, the same as present-day Ramanathapuram in Tamil Nadu. Later, the British in the colonial era made it a part of Madras Presidency. By 1920s, both Sri Lanka and India wanted it exclusively for fishing, and the dispute remained unsettled for decades thereafter. Both countries became independent in the 1940s, yet the dispute continued. The issue was taken up during a state visit by the Sri Lankan president in December 1968. The issue was taken up during a state visit by Sri Lankan Prime Minister in December 1968. The dispute was formally raised by Prime Minister Dudley during his official visit to India in December 1968. He discussed it with Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and formally stated his position that there was no question of sovereignty over Katchatheevu as it was part of Sri Lanka's territory. This became a major issue for India given its own claims supported by Raja of Ramanand. New Delhi and Colombo worked towards settling the dispute once for all over the next 6 years. While the Ministry of External Affairs led the talks from India's side, naval hydrographers played a key role in working towards a resolution. But how and why suddenly it is making headlines? What is its relevance and why is it strategically important to India? Let us understand. Now, after the talks that were held in 1974, the Prime Minister of India and Sri Lanka, Indira Gandhi and Sirimavo Bandranayak, demarcate signed an agreement to demarcate the boundary between two countries in the waters of Park Strait and Adams Bridge. It was called the Agreement between Sri Lanka and India on the boundary in historic waters between the two countries and related matters of 1974. A joint statement issued on June 28, 1974 stated that the boundary had been defined in conformity with historical evidence, legal international principles, and precedents. It also pointed out that this boundary falls 1 mile off the west coast of uninhabited Katchatheevu. Article 4 of this agreement stipulated that each state shall have sovereignty, exclusive jurisdiction, and control on the waters, the islands, and the continental shelf, and the subsoil on its side of the maritime boundary with the Park Strait and Park Bay and Katchatheevu Island was determined to fall within Sri Lankan waters. The following article added the Indian fishermen and pilgrims would enjoy access to the islands as before and would not be required by Sri Lanka to obtain travel documents or visa for these purposes. In 1974, agreement was followed by a second one in 1976, the agreement between India and Sri Lanka on maritime boundary between the two countries in the Gulf of Mannar and the Bay of Bengal and related matters of 1976. According to Ashok K. Kantha, who was India's High Commissioner to Sri Lanka between 2009 and 2013, he said, issue had long dragged on before the independence between the two countries, whether the Katchatheevu Island belonged to India or Sri Lanka. It dragged on for several decades and was negotiated at various levels. The 1974 agreement addressed the maritime boundary dispute between India and Sri Lanka and paved the way for the better understanding. It addressed all the existing ambiguities and there was no ceding of the island by India. The question did not arise because the maritime boundary was not demarcated. Since the two agreements were signed, successive governments have continued to respect them. Even Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government never spoke about this agreement. However, they were actively criticizing it when it was signed back in 1974. A very important statement was given by Mukul Rohatgi, Attorney General of India, back in August 2014 that the islands were given to Sri Lanka based on the bilateral agreement in 1974. To retrieve it now, we would have to go to war. This was a statement given by Attorney General Mukul Rohatgi back in August 27. A very crucial statement that says the island was given to Sri Lanka based on a bilateral agreement in 1974. To retrieve it now, we would have to go to war. This was said by the then Attorney General Mukul Rohatgi in Supreme Court on August 27, 2014, ahead of the hearing petitions on retrieving the island. In fact, in a separate 1976 agreement with Sri Lanka, India got exclusive rights over Vajj Bank, a much bigger area located near the Cape Comorin. Well, that's all for Katchatheevu Islands. For more updates, stay tuned to the Savera.